Now there's this big movement on LinkedIn. Why are recruiters not following up with me? I submitted my resume 2 days ago. And so, of course, it's kind of tough to keep everything organized, stay on top of your game, and let everybody know where they are in the process. This is where Loxo's automations are really good.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make the change. Today, we have an incredible Tactical Tuesday ahead of us, but before we get into that, just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show. Some days, we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, and they're going to teach you how to do something that's helped them be successful. Some days we'll cover trending topics, items that recruiters are talking about or will be very soon and what those mean for them. Every Tuesday like today, come on by for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that you can start doing today that's going to help you drive better results. Every now and then we open it up for Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on. Send those over to us at podcast@loxo.co. And every now and then Matt drops by for a mic drop episode where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. All right, for today's Tactical Tuesday, we have Vivien joining us as always as our resident expert living at the intersection of all things recruitment and ChatGPT. Question, as a recruiter, tell me if you can relate to any of these things. Not feeling like you have enough time in the day for all the items you need to do, forgetting whether or not you followed up with a client or a candidate, struggling to find that one note you swore you placed somewhere but can't remember which notebook it was in or what platform you logged it in, or in general just keeping up with and trying to remember the details for every specific search that you're working. So I know I wasn't raising my hand, but in my head I was literally raising my hand for far too many of those items, and that's why I'm excited for today's conversation as we get into some best practices around how to help you stay organized. So on that note, let's jump into it with Vivien.
Sounds good. That was a perfect tee up.
I love it. Then I let you do your thing from here.
Sounds good. So as a recruiter, you are kind of juggling so many different balls. You have to stay on top of so many different things, especially if you're working on more than just even 1 or 2 searches. It starts to get complicated. On top of that, you're expected to do business development if you're running a 360 desk. You're supposed to stay in touch with all of the candidates. Now there's this big movement on LinkedIn. Why are recruiters not following up with me? I submitted my resume 2 days ago. And so, of course, it's kind of tough to keep everything organized, stay on top of your game, and let everybody know where they are in the process. This is where Loxo's automations are really good. But that's a topic for another day. But one way to kind of stay organized in ChatGPT is to have a strategy on how to actually utilize it. So in all of the previous episodes, we talked about so many different ways that you can utilize ChatGPT as a recruiter to fluff up your recruiter game, to get over writer's block, and maybe use some copywriting principles to get candidates and hiring managers' attention and kind of just provide white glove service essentially. So something that I was doing as a recruiter is I had one new search I had one conversation for each new search that I had. So I would actually start off by saying just a basic introduction. I had scripts that I would just copy and paste. I would introduce myself. As always, I'm an agency recruiter. And this is the job for this company that I am working on. If it was confidential, I just kind of briefly described the industry that the company is in, the size, just like enough information where chat knew what this position might be about without actually revealing the company, just in case. And this is where I would give it the job description. I would add any additional notes that I got from having a conversation with the hiring manager, what I know about them, if I know anything about them, or if this is my first time working with them. And this is where I also asked it to kind of write a more compelling job description that I could post to gather a little bit more attention from potential candidates. I also use it to create LinkedIn messages for outreach. This is also one thing that you can do is create a multi-step outreach campaign so that as you are sourcing and you keep finding good candidates, you can put them into that outreach campaign and it will just kind of automatically keep following up and sending them until they finally respond and tell you, I'm not interested. I don't know anyone. Please leave me alone. And this is also when to kind of start hitting a wall with like the typical keywords and like the starter ones that you have. This is where you can ask ChatGPT, can you help me? I've tried this, I've tried that. I need a new Boolean search string and to help it come up with some creative ideas on how to find other people, maybe competing companies that you could potentially pull from. all of that kind of stuff. And you can also use this once you have candidates that you're ready to submit to write up really good write-ups or presentations, what we used to call them, to really convey, okay, this is why I really like this candidate, why I think he would be a great fit, or why she would be a great fit. A lot of times what I saw is that candidates just had that one resume that they sent everywhere, that just kind of had like a general outline of their experiences. But whenever I did a screening call, I was asking specific questions about, hey, do you have experience pertaining to this? And a lot of times this is where I would pull out a little bit more information that wasn't always on the resume. And I wanted to make sure that a great candidate had the ability to actually get an interview, regardless of whether the resume was actually decent or not, in terms of like having like targeted points specific for that company in that position. This was my job as a recruiter. And on that note, you can also create that one conversation to come up with a screening questionnaire. So a lot of things that we covered in previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you can also give it some feedback and say, you know what, I've submitted a couple of people. They had XYZ missing. Can you come up with a new Boolean search string? Can you come up with a new outreach campaign? Because a lot of times the first batch of candidates, that's not the one that has the one that gets across the finish line. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you have to keep at it. It's a longer search. And this is where you can kind of brainstorm with ChatGPT. Okay, I'm kind of in a rut. I don't know what else to do. What ideas do you have? Like, don't worry about being out of the box and coming up with crazy ideas. I'm down for whatever at this point.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about it, is that you have this log in there. So you can either see what did I do that didn't work, or for all those Boolean strings, there's nothing worse than trying to be like, what did I include? What did I not include? Having to go retype it back out. You can go copy and paste, add, tweak, modify, but you have everything there that's logged for you. So you're done with this starting from scratch every single time.
Yep. And the cool thing is that even if you haven't had that conversation with ChatGPT for a week, you can always resume it. It knows where you left off. So you don't have to start over every single time. You don't have to say, actually, remember this job and this thing that was going on. What was that again? And the cool thing about that is also you have a record of everything and timestamps of when you started, so that when a client comes over and is like, you haven't been working on this, like, well, actually, I started on this date. This is how many people I reached out to. This is the campaign that I used. Like, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, you have a track record. It's like you're taking meeting notes on your search without actively actually doing that. And if you forgot something, you can ask ChatGPT, remember that campaign you had, like, you said like ninja somewhere. What was that? It will pull that up for you. So it's really good for that. Then next up, I would recommend that you have a new conversation for each candidate that you're using for MPC purposes, most placeable candidate marketing. The reason why I suggest that is that you essentially have, okay, this is the resume, this is the experience, this is what this candidate is looking for. They're located here, they're willing to commute within 15 miles or something like that. Find all of the companies that might be hiring for these kinds of positions. And then you can look it up. If you see any particular open positions, you can say, you know what, this company has an open position. This is the job description. Please write like a quick summary of why this candidate would be a perfect fit for this position. And then you can split it into a multi-step outreach campaign. We have another podcast episode on that. And that way, as you're doing more market research for that particular candidate, you don't have to always start over and say, this is the candidate, this is what they're looking for, this is their resume. You just keep the conversation going, and anytime that there's an update, you can add it in there. And you can also brainstorm ideas with ChatGPT and say, what do you think I should do? Like, be wild a little bit, like go on the wild side. Let's see what AI suggests you should do. And one thing that I would recommend is name your conversation so that they're easy to find. So for the NPCs, I usually use the first name and the last initial of the person, or something that was like an identifier for me, where I knew, oh, this is the person that I'm trying to look for. Same thing for all of the positions that you're working on. You can use just the job title. If you don't have any of the same job titles, you can do company. If you are working on one position for each client company, or if you're working on multiple recs for one company, just have like a quick abbreviation or maybe even an emoji signifying that particular company if you wanted to. And then just like the job title. It doesn't even have to be the like full one. It's just to kind of help you stay organized and at a quick glance see, oh, this is what I'm looking for. And you don't have to spend minutes and hours trying to be like, what was that conversation? Because ChatGPT does come up with names for the conversation that you're having, but they're not always helpful.
Yeah, I would pay to see the emojis that people pick for a lot of the clients that they use. So if you have a great emoji and you want to take us up on that, send them on over. Be curious to get a good laugh out of it.
I actually use emojis to organize my inbox with the filters. I'm a little bit more boring where I put the country flag over where the customer is so that I know what time zone they're in. So that's just one way of kind of doing it. If it's in a specific industry, you can use like a specific emoji. If it's in manufacturing, you can do like a hammer, maybe, whatever it is. Or if it's like a client that you absolutely love, you can just use a heart emoji. I promise they will never know about your ChatGPT conversations. Or maybe like a big red X, like, no. So yeah, that's the cool thing is ChatGPT will never share this with your client company unless you send them those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have two more pieces of advice. One is have one ongoing conversation for your BD efforts and your strategy. Have one conversation with a business development strategy. Let it know I'm actually working on 2 NPC player marketing campaigns, but I feel like I also need to do something else and kind of come up with conventional marketing campaigns. Help me come up with a strategy. And then kind of go from there, keep it updated about any relevant KPIs and things like that. And this way it can give you recommendations on how to best move forward. Like, okay, if I haven't heard back from any of these companies, I don't think it's going to work out with this group of companies. How do you suggest I pivot? And it can provide you with some ideas and you can say, you know what, I actually don't like this at all. Or I never thought of this. This is a great idea. And kind of have like a collaboration and just talk to ChatGPT like you would to a consultant or a coach that is kind of helping you out. And then lastly, which is actually my favorite piece, is have another separate conversation where ChatGPT is your virtual assistant or VA. And this is where I typically go when I need to write like a general update or email. I just provide really quick context like, hey, this is the client that I'm working with. They are looking for this. I need you to kind of tone down of the email. Make it sound a little bit more professional, more polished, check for flow and things like that. And that way, anytime that you need to kind of follow up on something, you can say, you know what, remember that email that I sent? They actually sent this back. What do I say back? And ChatGPT will know and will be able to help you out. Another thing is when you tell ChatGPT what your goals are as a recruiter, such as this is my base salary, this is my on-target earnings, I'm really shooting for this. Typically, we get X percentage for each search. This is my chunk for the commission. I would love to make XYZ money. These are the searches that I'm currently working on. These are the stages that they're in. Little things like that, and it can actually help you prioritize tasks that will get you the money that you need. Because as a recruiter, the motto is we're closest to the money. And so when you're overwhelmed and you're like, okay, I have all of these things going on, I don't even know where to start. You can go to ChatGPT and say, okay, these are all of the things that I need to do. What do you think I should do based on my goals? And what is actually a priority? And what am I freaking out about? And I'm being a little bit over emotional about, which happens. Recruiting is quite the roller coaster. And the cool thing is in the next episode, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into how to make ChatGPT your virtual assistant. And that's it.
I'm excited for that one. That's going to be fun. I'm huge on goal attainment and working backwards from your core goal. So yeah, it'll be fun to get into, what are the inputs that you can share with it, and then how does it help manage you along the way and getting to those. So all right, no more spoilers on that one. We'll save that for next week. So yeah, hopefully this was super helpful for everyone. Thank you as always for coming on the show. I know myself, I'm always working on better organization and everything else. So I'm definitely taking a few thoughts and ideas away from this and hopefully inspire some recruiters to do the same. So everyone, that's it for today's show with Vivien. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.